Hey guys, what's going on? This is Pete Thomas coming at you live with another edition of Mode 7. And I am joined here by Handshake Guy and James, aka Falcon Flavored Punch, aka Objection from just about everywhere. And we had an interesting discussion. Handshake Guy and Objection and I all frequent a site called Backloggery, and he brought up an interesting topic about the whole purpose and premise around kind of backloggery, as well as like video games in general, having a backloggery and kind of what are you doing through the process. But we wanted to talk about it a little bit and get together. It's kind of like a small roundtable sort of thing. I think we all have pretty strong feelings on it and kind of our own thoughts about what exactly backloggery in video games kind of means to us in this kind of light. Yeah, I'm gonna turn it over to Handshake Guy. He's kind of got the premise of it, and yeah, man, go for it.
All right, so in a shortened nutshell method of saying this, our topic is the value of beating your games and how to maintain fun in your hobby without making it a chore. Um, Something I discovered and something a lot of backloggery users may find is that as it charts your progress as you beat and complete games and you kind of see your unfinished games dwindle, hopefully, um, you start to kind of question the actual value behind beating those games and whether you're doing it for fun, whether you're playing games because you truly enjoy them, or if you're really more interested in just seeing that stat deplete. And it almost makes gaming feel like it's more your job or your career than it is actually something you're doing for fun. So I begged the question about how people use the website and what they do to prevent themselves from getting that feeling. And the first person to respond to me was Objection here. So if you want to kind of go off of that here.
Yeah. So I saw his comment on Backloggery about basically Backloggery about, what do you get out of games? At what point is progress in Backloggery perhaps counterintuitive to the idea of playing games as a hobby, as something you enjoy in the first place? And I left some long comments on his page and on a couple other people's pages that were kind of seeing it. It kind of circulated to, I don't know, 4 or 5 people that I saw at least, of people I know, and so it was interesting to get different feedback. But as a starting point for kind of my view on it, gaming is supposed to be fun. The idea of playing games itself should be fun. And so what I want from Backloggery is to be like, okay, I didn't get a chance to have all this fun. I didn't have the time to play this game, or I wasn't really paying attention. I just kind of stopped, and so there's still bits of fun to be had, and so that's why I want to go back to these games. If I didn't play a game because it's not fun or I don't like it, like I personally, I don't make any priority in going back and playing what I feel is unfun stuff. So if you have a backlogger and you have 100 games and 10 of them are fun ones, and that 90 of them are ones that you drop because they were unfun or just not as appealing at the time, I would say the more important would be to go through those first 10 first and not necessarily feel any obligation to um, play stuff for the sake of any kind of progress. So that's my starting point here.
Anything from you, Peter?
Yeah, as the overall premise, I think that when I joined Backloggery out of the group of us, is my Backloggery the biggest, or is it yours,
Yes.
Handshake Guy? Is it
Yeah,
mine? Okay.
by it's yours by a very high margin.
Okay, yeah. So I just didn't want to jump onto. I didn't want to jump out there and say that without it actually being true. But yeah, so I come into the backloggery with one of the biggest backlogs, and I do feel like there are times when I look at it, and in terms of your point of still keeping it fun, I do look at it as almost like a chore. I start up these games. I play through them, I buy new games behind it, and I'm like, oh, well, I can't really start this game yet because I still got 380 other games that I still haven't beaten from the past decade. So yeah, I know it sounds really funny too, but it's like that's literally it's like there are games I'm beating, and I look at like the copyright dates, and I'm like, shit, it took me 2 years to even open this game, and
Oops.
like so yeah, part of it is like you have this website that's constantly reminding you of like, hey, you bought all these games, what are you doing with them? And I'm like, I don't even know. what am I doing with them? It's like they're collecting dust. So yeah, I can definitely get behind the fact that looking at it this critically can certainly suck a lot of the fun out of it.
And to piggyback off of that a little bit, I'm looking at your Backlogger account right now, and your backlogometer, or whatever you called it,
Yep.
is 60 years.
Yes, yeah. So for those who don't know, there was a user by the name of Parking Tigers who created a what was called a backloggerometer or something, and basically,
Backloggerometer.
yes, and basically what it did was it took the amount of games that you beat, how long it took you to beat them, and it's a very like rough estimate. It basically takes how long you've been gaming as how long it took you to beat them. Takes that time and then divides it into your current games that you have not beaten and gives you like a year marker letting you know how long it'll take you based on the amount of time it's taken you so far to beat the rest of your games. And that number was actually much higher. There was a time when I actually would not be alive to finish all of my games. I think it was like 132 years. And
Not
I'm
planning
just
on
like,
being around that long?
yeah, yeah, I wish.
Way to be a pessimist.
I know, I know. I mean, of course I would have made it. I just would have, had arthritis and carpal tunnel and osteoporosis and you name it.
Just a few beers.
But gosh darn it, you're gonna finish Final Fantasy 3.
You're right. It's right. So yeah, it's it was a really high number, and I started really like trimming down. And I mentioned this a couple of times just in my daily streams that streaming has definitely helped keep me kind of streamlined in terms of staying on one game, because I had really bad gamer ADD, which is like pop a game in, play it for 10-15 minutes, be like, oh shit, I got all these other games though, pull it out, try another one, rinse and repeat for like 5 or 6 games. At the end of the day, you spent 8 hours or whatever playing games and made absolutely no progress on any of them. So yeah, it's been a tough journey. And hi, my name's Peter, and I'm a backlogger.
Yeah.
So
With the fake forced little smiley face and all.
yeah, yeah. So
I mean, to recount my story, because at one point I did essentially get down to 0, which it was kind of a goal of mine. And once I had reached it, I kind of realized how artificial it was. But like up to the point where I got it, it was really important to me. But I joined Backloggery in summer of 2009, and I think I started around 45% unbeaten games, or games I marked as unbeaten. And it took me little under, or a little over 2 years. I mean, it was the end of 2012. And I asked the same question for a brief period as basically you did when you opened this up, is what happens when you get to 0? Like, do you open yourself up more to games you didn't already have or experience that are already out? Do you just, start from scratch with games that come out and add them to your collection and just keep playing? And, I thought about that briefly, and then like a week or two later, it was like, whatever. Like, I had more unbeaten games that I just added, and gaming kind of went on. So I think it's kind of as big a problem or whatever as you can make of it. It's because it is the artificial, the online component of a literal thing. A lot of it is kind of mental in terms of like you have a online database, and then the way Backloggery's rules are kind of vague. Though the way that you interpret everything is kind of up to your own gumption anyway.
yeah, I mentioned that as well. Is that Backloggery only has a very loose set of rules. It is very loose, even down to the fact that you can add your game names the absolute way you want to. So somebody might write Final Fantasy 13 as in 1-3. Somebody might write it as XIII. It is very loose. So I think that in that sense, not only the way you add them, but the way you beat them, and then what it means to you when you complete it and you get your medal.
And this all kind of came off of, I believe, the very original question I made was, as a objection was saying, what do you do when you get to 0? And it was almost a frivolous thought because, as gamers, I'm sure we all understand, there are like a barely finite amount of video games in the world. Like, good luck beating everything.
Yeah.
And what I was getting at was the rate at which the average gamer who spends a reasonable amount of their time gaming, the rate that they beat their games is usually quicker than games that they're interested in are released. And I was posing the idea that when you beat all the older games, because unless you were born at like the beginning of gaming, odds are you didn't play them every single game as you came out, and maybe finances were challenging and you didn't get a game when you wanted and things of that nature. But given infinite time and infinite interest, eventually the average person will beat all of the old games that they're interested in and be to the point that they're only playing new releases, assuming they don't go back and replay games and things like that. And what happens when a game is only released one-fourth as often as it takes you to beat a game? And I started saying, like, well, if you're beating games just to beat games, do you want to finish your backloggery? Do you want to get to a point that you don't have any more options to play, any new experiences to get into? And that's what led us into talking about what is the value of beating a game. Are you beating it to beat it, to get the stat, or are you beating it because you're enjoying the ride and you like playing your game?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, my easy caveat for me personally is I'm not a retro gamer, so I could just ignore all the old games, and that would take out that whole equation of that for me personally. Most gamers are like, no, I want to check out the original Nintendo Entertainment System or Super Nintendo Entertainment System. And I'm just like, those games are old. I mean, that's oversimplifying it. I don't hate all old games. I don't hate all games that came out before I started gaming, which was late 90s. But overall, it's rare that they catch my attention. So like when one comes out, I'll be like, I have to play this one. But it's not like I want to check out the top 20 games of this old system. But yeah, I mean, in terms of me, I like the things I play for in games is enjoyment and story. So like credits, a lot of times that's the story. I just saw it through, so that kind of coincides with beating a game. But yeah, if I'm not enjoying a game after an hour or a couple hours, I mean, it depends on the genre maybe, but I'll drop it. I'll delete it. I'll sell it. Like whatever. And that's kind of a personal thing for me. Is I'm willing to sell games. Some people aren't because they collect it a little bit more than I do at this point. But yeah, I'll sell them and then I'll use that money to buy more games that are more fun for me. So that might vary.
And that kind of brings up the idea that if you have a backlog account, and even if you don't, are all the games you play games that you play or games that you bought because you wanted to or because they sparked your interest? Or is it a sort of mob mentality? Do you play a game because it got a high critical review, or because somebody recommended it to you, or because it's a nostalgic game for most people, or it's iconic? Like, for an example, personally, I don't care much for The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time, but I did play it and I did see it through to the end because that's the game on the N64, you know?
Hang on one
You're a
second.
better
I need
person than me.
to I need to make sure I put a disclaimer that we're not actually friends. So I just
Oh, you're gonna be really mad then because I
Shame.
barely played Ocarina.
no. I'm kidding. It's just
No, you're not though.
You know, well, most
Go
people.
ahead and change the topic title to Handshake Guy Can Shut His Worm Out.
Yeah.
I mean, most people would say that Ocarina of Time is like one of the best Zelda games ever. So it's like obviously you've got an unpopular opinion if that's the case, but it is your opinion, so it's obviously entitled. But I wanted to before we jumped onto like why we buy the games, I also wanted to mention too about the when you talk about like the end of your backlog, like what to do. And I think that nowadays there's actually more to do than there was. If you are now beating games, you've got a list of achievements to get or trophies,
Sure.
depending on what you're doing. Nowadays they can hide so much more extra stuff. There's extra modes, there's multiplayer, there's all kinds of different stuff that they put into these games because they have the room to. Back in the NES days or even Super Nintendo, you beat the game and that was it. Like you were done. You had a completed save file on there and you put that game away
Unless you were playing Donkey Kong Country and looked for all the secrets, in which case you're a masochist anyway.
Yes, exactly, because you were jumping off every single cliff you found for hidden
And I heard
barrels.
something like just the other day that like it was a big fighting game like Mortal Kombat 2 or one of the Street Fighter 2, like somewhere around that era. They're like, there's still one secret left that no one has found as far as we know, as far as we can tell from like the internet.
Yeah.
The creators are like, there's still something left, you guys.
Wow.
Well, Shadow of the Colossus has a huge following, maybe not as huge anymore, of people just looking for secrets because I don't know how much you guys know about that game, but they were originally planned to be something like 50 or 60 Colossi, and they settled on 16.
Yeah.
Oh, thank
So-
God.
So they're talking about, like, did they leave any remnants of that? And it's a huge, vast, and largely empty but pretty world, and there are people willing to go to great lengths to just like scour every inch of it to see if they can find something new.
Yeah. And that actually brings up another thing. At the end of games, people who don't have anything else to play, I think that's where speedrunners are born. People, they finish a game and they're like, wow, it spoke to them or whatever it may be, and they just play the shit out of it. I actually found a guy, I must have followed him like randomly on Twitch, and I popped in and he's playing, ironically, Ocarina of Time. And he keeps doing the same thing over and over again, and I'm like, what is he doing? He's finding this glitch where in the market town, when you're young Link, you can literally sidestep jump all the way over to this like crate, hop up on it, and then jump in and like warp yourself through the door without going through the open door animation. And like he literally did that, and if the chat was truly correct, he had been doing that for like 6,000 or so tries.
Oh my gosh.
Because every time he did it, I saw a number go up, and I'm like, what is that number? And I was like, oh my god, is that his attempts?
So he's attempting to do this because like this will cut down on this small fraction of his speed run.
I think he said 6 seconds it cuts down on.
Well, that's what speedrunning is all about. I think the person, his name is Siglemic, or maybe it's Cosmo, but he has the world
Cosmo
record.
was the one I was right.
Cosmo, yeah.
Yeah.
And he has the world record for Ocarina of Time. He actually just broke it again recently. And he said that just in recent memory, he's done like 5,000 attempts with his current method of running it.
That's insane.
And I'm like, I mean, just imagine the number of hours.
Yeah, yeah. But yeah, I just wanted to dabble, like just the fact that there is a lot more at the end of Zero, and I think that's what I said. It was like, it's left up to interpretation. You could look at Zero as like, oh God, what do I do now? Like this is the end of all gaming for me, and that's it. But yeah, no. In terms of I guess buying the games themselves, I think that I kind of fall into 3 buckets, right? So I got the bucket of games that I buy of things that I like. Like I know that I like Final Fantasy. I'm going to buy every Final Fantasy, and no one's gonna.
Poor soul.
Yeah, I know. Nobody's gonna. I will be playing Final Fantasy 34 on the PlayStation 6 one of these days. Hang tight.
Okay. I guess to keep the ball rolling, to piggyback off what he said about what do you do when you finish all your games, and I have 2 things to say about that. Backlogger user Starlight mentioned that. As she beat games, she began to, presumably her avatar's a girl, she began
I think it's a guy.
Oh, well.
Oops.
Ambiguous user began to consciously make the decision not to play as many games anymore. And he or she began taking up new hobbies, started focusing more on those hobbies. And I've made posts on my Backloggery before saying that, I'm starting to get kind of burned out on video games. I wanted to focus on some other stuff. And I think that's what happens when you start, like, for every game you beat, that's one more game that you're not going to get to play again later, and it'd be a new experience. Yeah. So eventually you hit that point where you just kind of want to experience something new for the sake of something new. Like, I'm playing Final Fantasy X again right now, but I've beaten that game before. And granted, there's some things that I've forgotten and so on. But largely, I'm just kind of repeating that same story. Like, I know the ending. I know all the plot twists and everything like that. But eventually, once I finish, like, all the games that are in, like, my list, basically, and all the games that come out, I'm going to need new experiences to keep fulfilling that in myself. Yeah. And that's when you start to turn to books, to movies, to comics, to things of that nature.
Yeah, I think... and like whether you're able to have the time for 40 games or 4 games, I think as long as if the hobby is important to you, as long as you're playing it semi regularly, I think that, and your whatever your benchmarks of success is, beating some of them or being able to experience the 4 games that you really wanted to be able to, I think either of those is a success. Like if you have the time for 40 games and you can get through most of that and everything, it's kind of healthy in general. That's a pretty good goal. If you only have time for 4 games, but it's the 4 games you wanted to play, like that's a totally different style. Maybe dictated a little bit by your lifestyle, your work and family, but that can be very rewarding unto itself.
Sure. Is it bad for me to go back to completing my thought? Are we too far off of that?
No, go ahead.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure. Again, I apologize for that, but yeah. So obviously the first reason I said was just buying it because I wanted to. Like that's just the kind of games I like and things like that. The second reason is I usually buy games that I'm interested in the publisher, and I know that the title is going to be like $80 or $90 if I don't buy it right now. So that's one that I definitely fall trap to because those.
Xenoblade Chronicles.
Yeah, yeah. I bought Xenoblade Chronicles. I've never touched it. I actually lent it out to my friend the day I bought it. He opened it. I didn't even open it.
Jeez.
And I haven't touched it, but it's now $80 or $90, so I'm glad I have it. I may hate the game, but I don't know that yet until 3 or 4 years. It's
Man,
still
if you
got a
hate it,
couple.
you're gonna be as unpopular as Handshake Guy about Ocarina if you hate that game.
And I'll be $80 richer.
That's true, yeah.
I say this having been someone who thought Xenoblade was
Yeah.
like not bad, but
I've seen it played. It's got some interesting stuff going on, but internet hates me enough already, so this won't kill me.
we're not gonna say anything in this one sitting. You know.
Sure.
No,
And
no.
I'd say that the third reason is definitely like friends or maybe being out somewhere and overhearing people talking about it. One of those examples is like Borderlands. I would not have ever touched Borderlands because I despise first-person shooters. Somebody was like, "Yeah, but there's RPG elements." I was like, "Sold. Where's my copy?" And I loved it. I thought Borderlands was amazing. But if it wasn't for a friend of mine literally selling me on it, saying like, "You got to try this. There's over a bazillion guns," or whatever they said. I was like, "Well, the guns doesn't bother me." They were like, "Yeah, but you can get lightning on those guns." I was like, "Oh shit, it's about to go
That's what
down."
it was.
Yeah.
So you were picturing a pink-haired Final Fantasy protagonist being shot out of the guns.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I was ready to go. So, but yeah, so it's definitely a combination of the three, and I'd say out of all of them, the worst is probably the ones I'm buying just to make sure that their prices don't get jacked up, because they're also very obscure titles and they're very, very hit and miss.
Yeah.
You never know what you're getting with Atlas titles or
And
yes, or NIS America. Yeah, Arlecchino 2014. Welcome back. So yeah, no, The Witch and the Hundred Knight is a perfect example of that. And if I say those
Perfect game.
words, if you watch the chat, they will all cringe. Everybody just,
Yeah.
I mean, even I'm just like, man, that was such a poor buy. Except for Eric Olson, he made out on that deal. So
Yeah, because
he?
he keeps
Did you
getting
give
free
him the
games
game?
out of this.
yeah, what's that?
Did you give him Witch and the Hundred Knight?
I totally did. Gave him I gave him because I bought the collector's edition by accident, and so I gave him the figure, I gave him the soundtrack. I was like, "You just take it. I don't want anything to deal with or to do with in my household." Like, so
Eric Olson is like 3 or 4 games added to his backloggery so far because of this channel.
I know. I'm so sorry, Eric Olson.
I was gonna say real
Subjecting
quick.
him to that.
Go ahead.
Nothing.
The 3 basic categories on why I would buy a game are very similar to like why I would watch a movie. So
Yeah.
like first option would be like I just want to play it. Like
Yeah.
I see a good trailer for it. I already have an interest for it. Like there's no real question about it. I don't need to be convinced usually.
Sure.
So that's just your general like, hey, Sega's like, hey, we are gonna localize the next Yakuza. I'd be like, sign me up.
Yeah.
Second category would be a friend or someone I generally think highly of their opinion said, maybe this isn't something you were already interested in, but like I totally recommend it. Like it's not what you think, or it is what you think, but they do this, etc. So like, more than the publisher or the commercials or whatever convincing me, just like the opinion of someone I value is like, yes, check it out, and I'll check it out based on that.
Yeah.
And then lastly would be the individual thing may not look that great, but somebody involved has a great track record. So if it's a Suda 51 game or it's a Hideo Kojima game, something like that, I'll probably be like, I don't know. Ground Zeroes is only 10 minutes long, but Kojima did it. I guess I'll check it out. And by check it out, I mean rent it.
Yeah.
So that's my 3 categories.
I guess I also have 3. One would be familiarity, which is similar to yours in that it would be the publisher, it would be the genre.
Yep.
Like, I'm a big fan of RPGs, so I may forego a popular shooter that comes out in favor of some PS2 RPG no one's ever heard of.
Never.
Another would be if a friend recommended me a game, like you said, just if I value their opinion highly, if we have a similar play style, things of that nature. And the last one is, as I mentioned before, it's kind of mob mentality. I guess I would call it a bit of a gaming ego. Like, I feel like I should play iconic games because I'm a gamer who exists on the internet. So, while shooters might be outside of my realm of familiarity, I do own the Half-Life series on Steam. If those weren't popular, I wouldn't have ever given them a second glance. But because the world seems to think they're good, I feel like I should give them that chance. And granted, on Steam, I spent like 4 cents on them, but
That's
what
4
happens
cents
when
you could have
that's
used to buy 12 other games.
Yeah.
but what happens when that's a $60 game? When BioShock Infinite came out, I believe in 2012, I had zero interest in it. And then on my Twitter, Ego Raptor said, "This is a pretty cool game," and I was like, "All right, I'm getting it."
Yep.
And that was the end of it. And granted, I did enjoy BioShock Infinite, but I mean, what if I didn't? And that can happen a lot, especially if you just exist in the gaming world. And there's a lot of people with a lot of different opinions who hold different games to different levels of revering them.
Man, unpopular opinion number 17. I would have been pissed if I bought that game for $60.
I got the season pass too. Oh my god.
Oh, so
man.
$90.
So
you're
and then I never
bound in
played
it.
them.
One of the things too I wanted to mention here was that or we talked earlier about how having the backloggery is kind of stressful whenever you see all your games that you haven't touched and things like that. But I also believe that it also kind of kicked my butt into gear. Like, I also don't buy games nearly as often as I used to. So, for those who are not familiar, backloggery kind of has two things that keep track of that. One thing is the multi-tap, or excuse me, not the multi-tap, the memory card,
Yes.
which shows you all of your purchased games versus all of your beat games. And my purchase games have gone down considerably. I think my first year back, because I had two accounts, my first year back with my new account, I had like 71 new games. And some of that's not all me. There was like the Nintendo Ambassador program, which gives you 20 right off the bat, or 10 or something like that. And all these different things that happen. And there are some things that are truly, quote unquote, unavoidable. But for the most part, though, it was definitely me going out to a store, looking at a game and saying, do I really want this because I want to play through it right now? Or am I just buying this because, yeah, I kind of want to play it, but it'll probably sit on my shelf until I'm really ready to play it?
Because it has pretty box art like Witch in the 100 Night.
Yeah, right. So
Darn it, got me again.
the other thing that they do too is they also show you statistics, right? I think every year Drumble gets everything together. Which, by the way, Drumble is one of the four who own the site.
Yeah, but he's the main, he
Yes.
does all the programming and stuff.
Yeah, and he does like a statistics, and everybody kind of fills out their survey and says like, how many games did you start with? How many did you end with? Did you get more, less, all this stuff? And overall, everybody who's been on Backloggery, there's kind of two trends of people. There are people who buy less and beat more, and there are people who beat more and buy even more. So
There's also people who just buy hundreds of titles
right.
and add.
That's
True.
the category. That's the Eric Olson category.
Yes.
But
Is he the guy that has like 800 unfinished games or
that's
whatever?
him. Yep.
Pretty
Oh,
much.
gosh.
Yep. We love you, Eric, but man, that hurts. But yeah,
He has finished games than I've even heard of.
sure. Yeah.
He's more unfinished games than I've ever had total.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever in the history of my gaming career ever touched that number. Bought and sold repeats of games, never touched
Or
that number.
Even like smelled in a game store.
Yes. But for the most part, so if we broke those three groups up individually, there's still 66% of these people who are beating games faster, courtesy of the backloggery. I mean, it may be coincidence, it may be the actual drive of the backloggery, but I think it's a good thing. It might be more stressful, but it also teaches you like, hey, you should really look at what you've got because you're just sitting on bucks that you aren't using.
Yeah,
True.
This helps
and
me. Go ahead.
and you do get like badges and stuff, which do
Yeah.
jack all nothing.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I mean, they do apply to your account.
Motivation.
Like just looking at mine right now. I have one that says "Consider yourself a hero." Well, it's just that the majority of my games are beaten, and it's like, well, I mean, I got a little reward, even if it means absolutely nothing.
Yeah.
I was gonna say it's helped me budget better, basically, because
Yes.
ever since I'm gonna say 2011, I've bought less games each year. Like 2011, it was the highest. I bought over 100, and that includes physical and digital.
Yeah.
But then I went down to 80, and then I went down to high 70s for last year, and probably this year I'm going to be in the low 70s. And just having less money just to waste on games now that I'm in the real world, it helps to have a side where I'm like, okay, not only do I have goals to beat, perhaps, but I have all the games that I plan to buy laid out, and so I'm like, I'm going to try and only buy about 2 games, and usually that happens. Sometimes it doesn't, but that's another way where I can just kind of plan ahead, and so I don't buy as many games because I'm not just like looking through a store being like, I gotta buy something. I mean, I'm losing money if I don't. And then I sell games a lot too. I think I'm one of only a few people who does that on Backloggery. It's really kind of an uncommon, almost unpopular thing. It'll be like me and maybe Lovely and like one other person I ever see like post links on eBay or something.
Yeah, I'm definitely getting more into the habit of doing so because, I don't want to keep games that around that I'm not ever going. Like, if I didn't enjoy it the first time, chances are I'm probably not going to enjoy it again.
Yeah.
Later.
And then there are some games where one and done.
Yeah.
And you're like, no, I'm done with you. Please leave my house while you have some value.
So one and dones are hard for me now because there are times when I've done a one and done and sold it and then realized maybe like a year later I want to go back to it. So that's really on a case by case basis. A one and done like of something that's got achievements and other things to do, I'll probably keep that. A one and done of something that literally, like, if I had owned the Uncharted series, for example, I probably would have sold them after I beat each one, but I'm just actually borrowing those off of friends, so that makes life easy.
Yeah. I have, because I keep track of it, it's kind of an additional stat I keep track of for my own purposes.
Yeah.
Since I started keeping track in 2010, so going on 4 or 5 years here, I've sold 300 games.
Wow.
So I have 370-ish games on my Backloggery right now. I would have almost twice that. And some of those would be games I have not beaten then because I sold them because I wasn't going to play through them. So that's also 300 games.
You've sold as many games as I have.
I sold them to you, apparently.
Maybe.
So congrats. Your whole collection is what I didn't want to play.
Witch in the 100 Night.
Handshake guy loves the sloppy seconds. It's okay.
Oh, jeez.
Can that be the
we're
quote?
supposed to be in pristine condition, but they're not.
Yeah, so...
And I guess kind of similar to that, I hated, scorned the idea of selling games for a really long time because I saw collector's value in them all.
Yeah.
And some things you have to realize is that collector's value is kind of trivial and arbitrary. The only true value that comes to a game is monetary and your personal value to it.
Yes.
Like, what are you willing to spend? What does that game mean to you? A game that's worth $60 might only be worth $10 to me if I just didn't like it and things of that nature.
Yeah.
So I started to realize kind of recently, maybe a month ago, I have so much stuff that exists solely to be on my shelf to accentuate the things that I actually like having. And I'm like, that's such a waste. And I sold all of it. I just made the split-second decision one day, offed it all, and got several $100s.
Do you hate yourself
You're like,
now?
I only have Duke Nukem Forever so that Dragon's Crown looks that much better by comparison. For the record,
man.
I like both those games. One less so.
Yeah, I'm sure.
I'm one of the few people who's actually played through Forever.
Oh, I have. I enjoyed it quite a bit.
Yeah,
I played bring it on, Internet.
Yeah, it's not bad, except for the 45-second load times.
Well, guys, thanks so much for being on the show. We're going to have to...
You don't like Ocarina. You like Duke Nukem
I know. I'm just like, man, this is
Your
hurting.
blood is green.
In
I'm
all
like, I don't know what's
fairness,
wrong.
I did not play Duke Nukem Forever because I was very turned off by a lot of the reviews. Again, I don't play those games to begin with, so when somebody's like, this is bad, then I'm just like, hell no, this isn't even coming close to my collection. So
And that's the important part of buying used, which I around half or more, probably 2/3 or 3/4. I buy my games through eBay and GameFly, stuff like that.
Yeah.
Occasionally GameStop, and I think that's a large the negative connotation of selling games is when people think of whoa, where would I sell my game to? They're like, can I sell it to my buddy? No. Okay, there's GameStop. Oh, nothing's worth anything at GameStop. Selling games is terrible. There's that connotation. And it's like, if you really take the effort, sometimes eBay is a good thing, or you can try and Craigslist it or trick your buddies into buying it. I've never done that. Uh,
Or you can
so
just
I
give
think
it
there's
to
that
him, Eric.
connotation.
Yeah, you're right. You just give it away like I do. I'm just like, here, take it. God, get it out.
If you give them a gift that's poisonous,
Yeah,
is it a gift?
maybe.
Uh,
Your GameStop comment reminded me of that. Like, you've seen that picture. It's like 1,000 games laying around.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
like
It's a
GameStop will
picture
give
of
you.
one of the
$13
largest
for this.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's a picture of one of the largest gaming collections. It's a
Yeah.
really great use of it. They're supposedly like overhauling their new trade-in process.
Sure.
It doesn't sound any better actually.
I figured it was. I mean,
It,
it's
it
hard for
gives
me.
a little bit.
I'm biased because I worked there at one point, so I'm just like I saw what was coming in and what was going out and what they
Oh,
were
yeah.
for, and it was just
Oh,
it was
yeah.
bad.
Yeah, they're overhauling it so that it's worth a little bit more to the common person.
Yeah.
But like the people who used to use all the bonuses, like if you put some money towards a pre-order, you get X% more. Like if
Yeah.
you did all that stuff, you could actually almost get what
Yeah.
they're worth.
Yeah.
And all that apparently is going away.
Wow.
So in the long run, it's not better.
By the way, this channel will never be sponsored by GameStop because they're just gonna be like, no, we don't like what you're saying
Yeah.
about us.
And I listened to a podcast who like they totally shit on free-to-play games, and then 40, 50 episodes in, they got sponsored by a free-to-play game, and it's so hilariously awkward
Oh, geez.
because they're like, we don't hate this.
Yeah.
Speaking of unpopular opinions, I'd
go
like
on.
to give the chat the option to kind of voice what they think about all this. If they want to pose a question to us, pose a thought for us to talk about, anything like that, just so
Yeah.
we don't get to the last 5 minutes and like have to rush through them all.
Yeah, like when you go to anime convention, it's like, and now it's time for questions. Oh, there's 100. We save 4 minutes. Go.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So
And
if
we may
any-
not get to them immediately, but we will take note of them.
Yeah. So if anybody has questions or want to chime in with anything, be sure to just leave them in the chat, and we will get them, assuming everybody's got it open. So.
Yeah, I just wanted to reply to one thing that Handshake mentioned earlier, which is like the value of games to yourself and their financial, like monetary value,
Yep.
which is like part of my perception of Duke Nukem is I had no expectations and I paid $5 to $10 and not 60.
Yeah.
And I think lots of games can be judged like that.
You know, that's something that's interesting to me because I don't have my copy of Phantasy Star Online versions 1 and 2. And I was looking at it, and to me, that game is very valuable. Like, I would play the crap out of that game forever and an eternity and never get sick of it. But the copies that I see on the internet go for anywhere from $60 to $120, and I just refuse to pay that much for a used game.
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter how much it's worth to me intrinsically, but I won't touch it because it's that expensive.
Panzer Dragoon Saga is like $700. Plus, you need a Saturn, and who does that?
HipX in the chat, or HipX, is mentioning a game's competitive value. And I think what he's referring to is games that like you can play multiplayer-wise or maybe even use in tournaments and stuff.
So things, Smash Brothers, Street Fighter, things like that.
Yeah, or Mario Kart even. Just like games where like that there's another value to it, like another use you're going to get out of it besides playing by yourself.
I would attribute that. I was gonna say I'd say that's similar to monetary value. Like, do you want to buy this game for $60? But will you play it for the next 15 years? You know. But I guess that could also be personal value. Like, I know a lot of people in the competitive Smash Brothers market really like Super Smash Brothers Melee, which isn't a terribly expensive game, but that game means a lot to a lot of people.
Yeah, I think I'm going to be actually with this new Smash Brothers. I'm actually going to go all gold or platinum or whatever the league is, and just win all the monies.
Oh, yeah.
Man, I
As if
was
there's even
last.
got to be a competitive scene for it.
I was last competitive, and I just only mean within my group of like 6 to 8 friends.
Yeah.
Last competitive in Smash Brothers, as in held a candle,
Yeah.
the first year that Brawl came out, and then like I stopped playing, and they blew past me, and I lost my save data because my first Wii broke, and then I never wanted to start again, and then I never played again. And
So, I mean, to properly address, I guess from my end, and I apologize if I missed this note, but for the games that do have competitive value, I think those people, they probably are either really good with balancing out their games they're buying on their own recreational time versus what they're spending training, if you will. I don't know a better term for it. So But
Training mode.
for me, I can't do that. Like because my backlog is so heavy. Like Smash Brothers may be an exception, but I will feel guilty every minute after I beat that game. Quote unquote, beat it. So that's unlocking characters, story mode, all that jazz. I will feel guilty for every extra moment I spend on it because I'll know I have this backlog of other games just waiting to be played, and they're just like, ha ha ha, guess what, it's another year. so yeah, I think competitive gaming is definitely geared more towards those who either don't have a backlog or are really good with managing their training, or maybe they're already really good at their game, making a whole bunch of money and don't have to do anything else, but
Maybe they're using that money to buy more games.
yeah, so it's I mean, it's definitely a good point, but for somebody like myself, like I couldn't get into competitive gaming as hardcore as I wanted to.
Well, what if we were to compare that to something you do play, like MMOs? That's quite a time sink too.
Yep, and same thing. I Final Fantasy 14. I promised myself that I would stay in Final Fantasy 14. I would not stop my subscription because that would motivate me to play. I played for about 4 months, pretty solidly. I was doing like 3 or 4 days a week on stream, I think. Or if I wasn't streaming it, I was doing it because I think I thought that people would not be interested in watching that on stream. That slowly went down to 1 day or 2 days on the weekend. That eventually stopped happening altogether, and I paid for 2 months where I didn't touch it the entire 2 months. Yeah, I was just like, okay, I'm done. I canceled the subscription, and I popped in one other time, which you guys all know about, which was when I streamed it over the free weekend with Kira and Jester, and that was it. MMOs I get into. I dedicate if there's an active one, like when Andre and I were doing Terra Rising. We dedicated 1 day a week to it, and that's it. If I don't have a dedicated time, I will not put any extra time because I will sink. I love MMOs. I will sink all of my time into them.
I wish that, because I'm so aware that I would flit from one to another, I wish they could be like, okay, the game costs whatever, like that's the disc, that's the initial purchase, and it's like every time you boot it up, we're going to charge you $1. Like, or maybe not every time you boot it up, but every day that you play. And that way I don't have to worry about not playing it for 2 weeks and feeling that I wasted money.
Or just no microtransactions at all, but that's silly.
I need my hat.
Yeah. Blink said in the question something about, let me try and find it. Oh, what about D2 treasure hunting?
I assume it means Diablo 2.
Yeah. So basically in Diablo or any kind of dungeon crawler, you can typically sit there and keep refarming the same areas to find rare loot. So basically going through an area over and over again until like the best drop you can get comes out of it. Which is totally randomized, and you have no idea when it'll happen, by the way.
I guess that I don't understand if there's 2 ways to interpret the question, which is like the enjoyment of grinding a game to get an in-game item that you want, and like you have the value and satisfaction of completing that armor set or getting the best stats, or do you mean like how do you feel about doing that kind of grinding in order to make real-life money? Because some people do that, where they'll play WoW or they'll play Diablo 2 and they'll say, okay, I have the best stuff, $200 or more. I don't do either because I don't like to farm.
Yeah.
I guess we could try to attribute it to the monetary and the personal value thing again.
Yep.
In a game that you like truly just enjoy playing, maybe that grinding and maybe that treasure hunting does mean something to you, and maybe that does boost the game's value. For example, Dragon Quest IX, that's a grind-heavy game, but I truly enjoyed it. Like, I seriously had fun hitting A and just whacking stuff over the head with a sword for like 50 hours at a time. And then I guess you have to compare the personal value to the monetary value. Like, are you getting your time's worth, and are you enjoying that time?
Yeah, because like if you're grinding in WoW for a couple months or a couple weeks to get that thing, but like every time you played, you were having fun with your friends and stuff, and then you're like, plus I'm going to sell this for money, then like that makes sense to me.
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
But if you're doing it simply, to get that item to sell, or even to just get it because you want to get that, the :C: on Backlog, or when you complete a game when you've gotten 100% or whatever, then it kind of falls back to like, why are you playing the game if not to have fun?
Yeah. Which definition of fun will change.
Yes.
Someone asked real quick, Miss Lynn asked about being impacted by like other streamers or Let's Players. That kind of just goes into what I said earlier about like if I respect their opinion, then I might consider that as something I might play. So it kind of falls into that of I've bought games before from Let's Players and streamers. Like they were playing it, it looked good, I played it and I enjoyed it, but it's not because they're streaming or Let's playing it. It's because like they've established themselves as a voice that I listen to, similar to friends, online or offline, or very very select online outlets like certain journalists, if you can call them that at this point.
And also when you get to watch videos of people playing or even watch them play them live, you can see their reactions and you can, hear their opinions and match those to how you value games. And even if you just see the gameplay, like, for example, Child of Light, I thought it was a platformer. I had no clue it was an RPG. And then I saw someone playing it. I'm like, oh shit. And I bought it and loved it just because, I got to see somebody playing it. And I'm like, oh, this isn't terrible.
Yeah. No, I mean, and maybe I'm biased because I do stream myself, but I'm definitely influenced. I mean, this is how I got into it, streaming was just watching other people doing it. I'm definitely influenced by a lot of people. I think I'm more influenced by how James had said it was that, if I respect that person, I've been watching their stream for a long time. I definitely listen to them a lot more. But then, of course, I also take into my own personality. If they're playing Call of Duty and they're like, oh my god, this is the best game ever, I'm not going to go out and buy it. I'm sorry. I'm not a Call of Duty person.
But you could pick up some Doritos and Mountain Dew while you're out.
I know, and start getting sponsored by PewDiePie or something, right?
Listen, I can have Mountain Dew and Doritos when I play Final Fantasy 13 if I damn well please.
Right.
Just confuse everyone.
Right. I just don't have to eat the cheesy ones. I can get Cooler Ranch if I want.
Yeah,
Unpopular
it'll get all over
opinion,
your
18.
special controller.
Yeah.
Unpopular opinion, 18, he plays Final Fantasy 13.
Well,
Oh,
unpopular opinion 18 is I didn't like Child of Light at all.
Oh, really? Oh, don't say anything.
And I knew what it was too.
I haven't said it. I haven't played it yet. I definitely. It's on
I
my.
wanted to like it so much. I was
Yeah.
like, look at this amazing art. Look
Yeah.
at the gameplay it's supposed to be. And I played the demo and I was just like,
Oh,
Blue.
interesting.
But it rhymes. The dialogue rhymes. It's cute.
Yeah.
I'm not going to explain it. I'm just going to bring it up so you're mad.
Muba said, "Devil's advocate question: does part of you perhaps regret starting into backloggery, or do you overall view it as a positive matter?"
For a time, I did.
Really?
Yeah. There's a point. I don't know if you noticed, but I closed my Backloggery account on a few occasions because, and it wasn't the website's fault. It was the way I was using it. But it was, like I mentioned before, truly making it feel like more of a chore than a hobby.
Yeah.
I was playing a lot of games a lot of the time that I didn't enjoy, and I was like, but I've got to beat them. I've got to clear my backlog. That's my whole objective here.
Yeah.
And that was still at the time when selling games was foreign to me, or like I was trying my best not to drop a game under any circumstance. And that's what eventually led up to me realizing, like, I just don't enjoy this hobby anymore if I'm going to keep on like this.
Yeah.
And I popped in, like, Kingdom Hearts 2 or whatever, like, just a game I love playing. And I'm like, but I don't want to give up video games. It's something I truly love.
Yeah.
So instead of cutting video games out of my life, I'm going to cut the fluff and the section of video games that doesn't apply to me out.
Sure.
And once I realized that, and once I made those adjustments to my Backloggery account, I got straight back into loving it. And it's like you said before, it streamlines my playing. It keeps me from having gamer ADD, and I get those little rewards, the little badges.
Handshake guy's all about them badges, man.
Oh, don't want to hear from you, Trophy Master.
I don't think there's been a point where I've regretted having the Backloggery. I think there's been points where I've regretted things I've done for the Backloggery, where it's like, I can't believe I just played all the way through that, whatever, which is why I do less and less of that.
Yeah.
I mean, I think in the overall, like, maybe not in and of itself, but like things it's allowed me to realize about myself, about what I enjoy doing, and then again, just like, hi cat, okay, bye. And then just being able to, if you need to reevaluate your finances, which I had to do in the last year, just being honest, then it was a way for me to break that down in a helpful way where I didn't have to give up gaming, and I still got to play quite a bit of it, but I got to kind of be like, well, you can't buy this many games for that much money anymore, so.
Yeah. I mean, I think it goes without saying, I certainly do not regret Backloggery. I sing its praises constantly. I think that the people that I've met there have been wonderful, save for these two, and I no, it's been really awesome. I've had some great experiences. I've met some really cool people and people who genuinely like and care about games, as much if not more than I do, and it's been awesome. So yeah, don't regret it at all. It helps with my progress, and I meet motivational people who do like, I mean, even White Layer, somebody who I don't interact with frequently, but runs little contests and stuff. She ran one. It was like beat 20 in March, and I beat 15 games in March. That was the first time I'd ever done that. I was like, I
Wow.
would have never have beaten 15 games in one month like that had she not have even said something. So,
Yeah.
And I
Um,
think that's kind of the goal of Backloggery, on top of actually personally keeping track of your games. It's to motivate each other.
yeah,
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 because the original discussion that like Dremel and Triforce mentioned is that when it was just like the 4 or 5 of them, like the idea was they started on a forum,
yeah,
and it was just like, what games have you not beaten? No, I haven't beaten this. Okay, well you should try and play that, and then they would play it, and they'd be like, I finally beat this game we've been talking about. Let's talk about it now. I can have that feedback, and so it's supposed to be about talking about the games beaten, what you're looking forward to. It is supposed to be a discussion.
yeah. Yeah, I think one of the things we need not do is do what James does, and he's like, "Hey, everybody, pick some games for me," and it's like you pick a game, and he's like, "Except that one, except that one. I don't like that one."
Listen,
And,
you just have bad luck.
And yeah, that's probably the best feature of Backloggery is the fortune cookie. Hey,
Yeah.
play this.
Oh yes, the
I think
fortune.
I've literally never listened to the fortune cookie.
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
always just like, shut up, I hate that one.
that one's been tough for me. I think that the fortune cookie, there's a certain time and place for that. It was not when I used it, because I picked it up and had it do everything that I have a U on, and it picked Batten Kaitos on the GameCube, and I was just like, oh, like I never would have thought to pick that game back up again. So I popped it in, I played it.
I have that?
Yeah, I actually got a good chunk of the way through, but I was forcing myself through it. Like I had no motivation to play it. I don't mind it. It's not a horrible game in my opinion. I hear
Yeah.
that Origins is better, but yeah, I mean, it was just like if I don't have at least some sort of like interior motivation to even try the game, then I'm not going to get through it. Like it doesn't matter what tools I have or what people are motivating me. I mean, I had people say to me like it turned gray, after 3 weeks of inactivity, and somebody was like, "You should really get back into that." I was like, "I probably won't, but that's okay." It's like,
Thanks for saying something.
Yeah,
It's good.
I
I'm glad that you
appreciate-
care.
yeah, I appreciate you letting me know. I got to take that off my now playing list. It's like,
Yeah, I used to, like, the year before and the year leading up to when I actually lottery, I would do a lot of those monthly contests because it would be like, well, I'm going to try and make this goal, and I'm going to try and make you all meet this goal too. And they're pretty fun, so I might do one of those actually pretty soon if I can. Not just like a number, because a lot of people do numbers and like some of them work because it's like alliterative. It's like this many in this month, but I'm
yeah,
gonna try and come up with like a theme coming up here. So
sure.
Well, you had one going on for a while, Peter. I think it was you, where it was like the A to Z thing.
No, that was White Layer again.
Yeah.
he was
Yeah.
participating.
Yeah,
I participated too.
yeah. I got that one. I did a little bit more poorly on. I think I did no 20 letters. That wasn't too bad. Yeah, I got through 20 letters, but that one's also not in a span of 1 month either. I think
That was over like a year.
Yeah, it was like a year and almost year and a half. It seemed like, but yeah. It
Yeah.
was,
Well, no, it was almost a year before I beat it. I was like the third or fourth person to get him. But she had it open for like 2 years until she was just like, I can't do this anymore.
yeah. I wanted to pull one question, but before I pull it, I want to make sure that you guys can also answer it. Princess talked about like what made me stream or decide to stream. So for me, I can answer both of those, but I need to know that you guys are also at least intending on streaming, because if not, then I'll
I
have
can
to-
I can
Yeah.
answer that.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so we could start with either you two. But yeah, why do you stream, or what made you decide to stream? When you do.
Well, I plan to stream for a lot of it. Again, is community driven. I know a lot of people that stream. I've appeared on your channel. This is probably like the 10th or 15th time now, Peter.
Mhm.
And I have a lot of fun every time I do. I love talking to the chat, and I would love it even more if I could actually like vocalize it like I am today.
Yeah.
And again, I could play the games that I want to play. Not that I don't adore playing Castle Crashers with you, but I I could play some like weird stuff like Grim Grimoire and like Final Fantasy IX, the one no one's heard of,
I
and
have
things
Grim
like that.
Grimoire. Do you want to play Grim Grimoire? We'll play it, man. Let's
Oh,
do it.
let's
Doing it
race.
right now.
No, I'm sorry. Go
Um,
ahead, though.
and a lot of it is I have friends who stream. I have friends who would enjoy seeing me stream. I like to think, and I'd love to give that entertainment to them.
Sure.
Yeah, I'll start my response by saying like I've Let's Played, which is like streaming except it's recorded, and I've done that for 2 or 3 years now with pretty limited success. But that's where I started, was doing Let's Plays, and the reason that I started doing those is I saw other people doing them, and I was like, that looks like fun. And the whole concept, because I very rarely do them by myself, is get one of my buddies together and we'll record a Let's Play together, and we make jokes about it. We just generally try and experience a game that we enjoy or mutually both not enjoy. And so that's where the Let's Play started, and then I'm hoping to transition into some streaming at some point, and the motivation behind that is, the idea of a chat, the idea of live feedback, as opposed to like you may get a comment on your YouTube video and it's probably negative. And it's like, instead of that, having a real talk with people while you show them this game, like that in and of itself is the appeal to me.
And I think it would also be a little more intimate. Like I could kind of speak to them if they were to ask like my opinion, like why do you like Final Fantasy IX? Why do you prefer it over the more popular ones? And I could actually give them a live response, and it could be a little more meaningful, because it's not just like I say I love this game on YouTube and someone's like, no, F you, I hate you, and stuff like that.
I'm just waiting for like every question back to back live is like, why unpopular opinion 13? Why unpopular opinion 14? Why?
I have so many friends who make fun of me for like not being a big fan of Final Fantasy VII.
Yeah. No, I get it too. I'm not a huge fan myself, so.
Bring it on, internet.
Yeah.
Never
No,
played
I'm
it.
right there
No
with
interest.
you. Yeah. No, I have to say that my reason for streaming actually kind of evolved, right? So it started out with like, holy shit, there are these people that are streaming games and making money. They're playing games and making money. That was just like. So originally, I will be the first to say it, that was why I started. I was like, I play games all the time. I'll play it for people to watch, like no big deal. And then like I started seeing the reach that I could have, and I was like, oh, this is way more powerful than just playing games. And I was like, and that's where the whole safe space / like changing the gaming community idea developed from. I was like, if I could get like a tight-knit group of people and pull them in and slowly get like this group of folks who are not tolerating any kind of racial slurs, harassment, anything like that, and just make sure that's ingrained and never let that leave, like don't have any tolerance for it whatsoever, like I could essentially, in a perfect world, change the way the community looks at this stuff, so that we stop being in all these different silos where it's like, oh, what's that? You've got another opinion? Yeah, go fuck yourself, because I don't like it. It's like go from that to back in the old days when I started gaming, which was like I sucked at a game and somebody came over and was like, oh, let me show you how to do that, instead of being like, haha, fuck you, noob, see ya. And that was it. Like, we're so siloed as a community that it actually bothers the shit out of me. And that's what that stemmed from. And then like little things started pulling in from that. I met some great people. I have a lot more motivation to game. It's just like all these little things kind of came together, and it just ended up being a lot of fun overall. I was like, I can do what I love. I can share that experience with a bunch of people I wouldn't have met otherwise. And I can potentially, change the way the community looks at games. So,
Yeah.
And I'm sure that's a big draw of it too, is just even the notion that you can make some sort of impact in the gaming world.
Yeah. I mean, that's huge for me. I was like, I'm not one of those people who just sit by and watches things happen and be like, well, it's not my fault, so I'm not a part of it. I'm very much like a person who tries to invoke change, be it wherever I am. So, this was one of those things that, and Oliver is like, I agree.
What's that? You don't like Final Fantasy VIII?
Oh,
Me
wait a
neither.
second. I'm going to crop him out. Hold on. Don't worry, you're next, handshake guy.
Okay.
No,
Man, I thought it was interesting that during this stream we had more random trolls than usual. But
Yeah.
we just kind of booted them out because that's not what we're about.
Yeah, yeah. No, I was doing D&D on Sunday with Killer Beavis, and it was just after one of the biggest D&D names let out, so we got a ton of trolls. They came in, they made a lot of remarks about five guys being together. I'm sure your imagination can run with that. Just all
Yeah, they'd
these,
be like, "We're gonna sue you because Five Guys is a restaurant." That was the
right?
joke,
Yeah,
right?
why don't
Yes.
you guys have Cajun fries there?
Yeah, that was it. That was it. And it was just like, it was nonstop. I mean, he had the most viewers, and I'd have to say that a lot of them were just very much just bashing and name calling, and it was really gross. I was like, this is unfortunate. To see it all, like, you hear about it here and there and stuff, but to see it live like that in action, just, I mean, with no regard.
Yeah,
Um,
because they just come in, they don't know what's going on.
yeah, Kingdom Hearts yesterday, Drew. Somebody popped in, and it was fake, but like literally tried to quote
I
unquote,
saw that.
yeah, spoil the ending. And I'm just like, really? Like that's what you had fun with? Is that entertaining to you? Like, are you not entertained? Like that's how I
I,
felt.
I, I have to wonder, like, what the appeal to that is. Like, of just ruining someone's day in the gaming community. I have no
Yeah,
clue.
like I
It's
don't.
it's Schadenfreude basically. It's
Yeah,
my joy at the expense of your lack of joy.
yeah,
I guess, yeah. Just getting a rise out of people.
Yep.
yeah. So
Um, any more questions from the chat? Got a high five for not liking Final Fantasy VII, so I guess I've got one more day on this earth.
One more. Yeah,
Um,
Grand Mooba and some others have just been mentioning like the perception of gaming, the perception of the people who play games
yeah,
changing, and it's
Yeah.
like, has it actually changed, or is it like that some people have finally been allowed in terms of like some people get to speak, some people don't speak, so that they can let these people in? Like,
yeah.
Um, I do think it has definitely changed to at least some degree. Uh, Gaming was a hugely like I don't know if masculine is the right word because I mean I got beat up for playing video games, but I mean like it was definitely targeted at a male audience, so there was some conscious decisions to like target males and not females. And it
Yeah.
wasn't until relatively recently that games were made with females in mind that weren't like Pretty Princess Party on the DS or whatever.
hey, that game is great.
Yeah, and I think that stigma kind of sticks with it, just the same as, but that's the thing that people don't understand is like every stigma sticks with it, right? Everybody believes that gamers are these like overweight, heavy set, smelly people, and like that's not true. Everybody believes that games are primarily a male activity, and that's not true. Like there's all these stigmas that stick with us. It's not just one. And I think that's where my gripe comes from. It's like you guys are calling out these one little issues, and yes, they need addressed, but we need to address them all. Like I don't care
Yeah.
how that's done, but you can't just pull out one thing and just be like, yeah, this needs addressed. Like we need more women characters. Well, there are women characters. Yes, they're not as popular yet, but I've seen more women characters star as their main things, and they're like, oh, yeah, but they're sexualized. And I'm like, okay, beggars can't be. No, I'm just kidding. But it's one of those things. It's like baby steps. Like, be happy that we've got women characters because we didn't have that before. You could barely count Miss Pac-Man.
Yeah, you got to respect the progress while still noting the progress to be made.
Yes, yeah. I mean, it's just like backloggery, right? We got to start from somewhere and keep moving forward. And I know that Anita Sarkeesian has some very rough opinions about the industry, and she talks a lot about some things that, I mean, I'll admit that there's a lot of things that are controversial, even to me. But her overall opinion is the fact that she's just trying to make change, and nobody can knock her for that.
No, there's plenty of other things to not. No, just kidding.
Yeah.
No.
Wasn't Miss Pac-Man actually like specifically made with like some mental attributes to appeal to women? Like it was engineered in some way or fashion that it was supposed to like get inside women's heads to make them play video games.
You mean outside of having a pink bow on her head? I don't.
Yeah.
Like there
I
was
thought
some
that was
like
supposed to do it by itself.
Yeah.
there's some like intrinsic quality of like the game itself that was meant to harbor the females.
Yeah.
I'll find that article someday.
Yeah, they. I think they do kind of a little bit of that, like outside of the physical things. Like some of the cutscenes show Miss Pac-Man meeting Mr. Pac-Man, if you want to call him that, and having like a baby Pac-Man or Junior Pac-Man, whatever the hell they called him.
Oh, it's
It
explicit for the 80s.
Yeah, they didn't really show it, right? So the like you beat the first level and miss it says they meet is like the chapter, and they like run into each other and a little heart shows up. And then the next or the next stage you beat, like it shows them too, and then like a baby pack running with it. It was little things like that. So maybe that's where it came from, but
Maybe. Um, Something that's not really been asked, but it's been like kind of dancing around.
yep.
And I want to pose this question: in what positive ways has the backlog helped us that we haven't mentioned already?
I actually haven't specifically mentioned that I've met people through it that I've. I mean, I met Peter originally through both of his backloggeries, I think, before I knew about his streaming. I don't know about a lot of people who stream here. I wouldn't have known about you until after I knew about your usernames. I've added people,
Yep.
and I've played with people only because I met them on there first. So that's a big part of it.
Yeah, yeah, it's definitely community for me for sure.
Yeah.
If it's not the getting the games done, it's hands down the community. And then I guess a very subtle third is it lets me be creative because the creation of themes is just a really cool thing you don't get to see a whole lot of. So as open ended as it is.
And I'll also add that the first streams that I can remember ever watching in terms of gaming was through Backloggery's Monday
Yeah,
streams.
true,
So
true.
that too.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to have to agree with community. I mean, I think it's like a borderline movie story that I just happenstance was going to Pittsburgh one day and I posted that on Backloggery, and sure enough, Peter here's like, dude, hang out with me. We're going to go to this diner and all this. And now here we are,
Yeah.
states
yeah.
apart and talking on the internet like we were in the first place.
Yep. Yeah.
Now
No.
I'm stuck in Missouri.
It was one of those things where I saw it and I'm like, I know he's not coming to Pittsburgh without saying hi. Like I had no
Right.
idea what was bringing him to Pittsburgh. I mean, it could have been a ton of things, but I was like, as long as you're here, if you've got the time, let me know because I will make it happen. I think that's
With or without your career, what you want.
yeah. I don't give a
We'll
shit.
find your hotel.
Yes. But yeah, I think it lets, I mean, the internet in general, it's a double-edged sword, right? It lets us meet a lot of people that we wouldn't have met otherwise. But I think also the internet has been kind of like a slow trickling poison because people now ignore the feelings and thoughts of these other people because all they see is, a screen and pixels. They don't
The
realize.
power of a nominee is a terrifying thing.
Yeah. So, that's part of the whole objective here is to make sure that that there's a real male or female or what have you behind behind those usernames, and you need to respect that opinion, body, mind, and soul. So,
And to kind of continue off of the question I posed, another big part of it, like you mentioned, is that you get to be creative. In that same vein, I feel like I get to be like, I feel like I'm almost more intimate on the Backloggery than I am with my other social media outlets.
Sure.
I mean, on Facebook, like, yeah, I kind of like offhandedly mention once or twice, like, yeah, I'm playing Final Fantasy X. But on the Backloggery, like, if I say I'm playing Final Fantasy X, there's a very high chance that some just random Joe's going to come along and say, like, dude, I love that game. Let's talk and be best friends and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And that's not something that, like, is frequent to happen in real life. In fact, I don't think that's ever happened to me. And in some regards, like, I feel like I'm a little more personal in the Backloggery because games are obviously very important to me, and that's an outlet that I'm, like, free to display as heavily as I choose here.
sure.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, I think we should probably wrap it up.
Okay.
I don't know if you want to have any closing thoughts or anything like that, but if not, we can do closing thoughts and then go to plugs, or we can just go straight to plugs. I'll leave the decision up to you guys. It's up to you.
I'll go first because I'll be quick. Closing thoughts. Games are supposed to be fun. Whatever, secondary part that you're doing in it, if it's impacting your enjoyment, maybe don't. I think that's what it basically comes down to.
You have the,
If you're not
the
having
power.
fun, yeah, if you're not having fun because you're playing something someone else recommended, it's not about them. It's about you, honestly.
Yeah.
You can be selfish about this. So that's pretty much all I'll say. I think we've covered everything else in greater detail. You can find a less gross, less sinus-sickened version of me on the media below me here. The Twitter and YouTube, our famous quest on the YouTube. I put up Let's Plays every week. I got 2 or 3 going on right now. Tales of Vesperia. Hope you don't like that one, because we don't. We're playing that. And by the way, when we say we don't like it, we mean we like it less than any other Tales game.
Sure.
It's okay as a JRPG. Also playing through Trauma Team, and we're doing our perfect run, 120 all blue coin run of Super Mario Sunshine, and we'll claim that until we get disproven or until we give up. So that's all going on the famous quest, and then on Backloggery, I am Objection, and also I guess I have a podcast. Excuse me for a second.
Oh yeah, I'm sorry. I should have put that in there.
I almost forgot. That's the state I'm in. We have Jim and I have a weekly podcast called Elbow Rocket. You can find it on iTunes if you search for Elbow Rocket in the podcast section. If you don't like iTunes, you can also find it by going to podomatic.com/Elbow Rocket. Weekly 1-ish hour where we talk games, we talk anime, we talk film, and everything in between. We usually complain a little bit. So, wow, that's gigantic.
I'm working on it. There
right in front of my face, too. I guess you are trying to crop me out.
Gosh, I'm working on it. There we go. Look at that. Makeshift.
Perfect. Nailed it.
Nailed it.
So, yeah, we'll be recording our 42nd episode this week. And we've got a few interesting plans for upcoming episodes. We occasionally have guests as well, and I'm really proud of some of the things we've done, some of the segments. So check that out. You can subscribe to it, or you can just listen to it one at a time. Also, I've never mentioned it just because it's a thing I set up a long time ago. If you go to my Backloggery, which is Objection, there's a direct link to the RSS feed, so you can just find the podcast there with whatever is the new episode. Yeah. And that's all the time we have here, so Peter and I thank you.
I guess it's on to me then if you're done.
Yes.
My closing thoughts are he kind of covered all of our topics for the most part, so I'm going to speak specifically on the Backloggery for Backlog users, and I know a few of us in the chat are also users. And what I'm going to say is I understand that the website is about beating games, but use the website however it applies to you. Under no circumstance start looking at it as a chore. Don't play a game you don't want to just because you want to get that number to drop just a hair. If you're doing it because it's a hobby, it's something that you enjoy, and if you're not enjoying it, you're wasting your time. It's as simple as that. All my plugs are at Handshake Guy for Twitter and the Backloggery /Handshake Guy. I'm not streaming yet, but I do appear on Peter's. What are you doing?
This is my physical backlog now. That's it.
Oh, you lucky fuck.
Is that killer is dead?
Yeah. That's
Hold on. Let me see if I can get my friend to help me pull over my bookcase.
Yeah.
Do you want to hate me even more? Because I hate Suda 51.
Oh, man.
He's actually... I don't like some of his games. Like his... Yeah, whatever.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't personally stream. I don't have a personal podcast, none of that yet. But hopefully in, I don't want to say near future because I can't promise that. But I'm here all the time. Yeah, it's actually, give me 20 minutes. I'm on Peter's constantly. I love to hang out in the chat. So any of you guys, if you're frequent here, you probably know me. If you're not, stop by. It's a lot of fun watching him play Katamari and Kingdom Hearts and Witching the 100. Right? And yeah, feel free, follow me on Twitter. And if we make good friends, hit me up on Facebook. We'll go to a diner like Peter invited me creepily to.
Yeah, don't worry about it. I actually, while you weren't looking, I actually bugged you, so I know exactly where you are at every given moment. So, no big deal. Yeah, cool. You all set then?
Yep. Good.
Okay, cool. Yeah. So first, I want to closing thoughts. I mean, you guys summed it up. There's no anything extra I can say about it. If you're not having fun, then don't do it. Games are our hobby. Games are, for some of us, our passion. Anytime that becomes a chore, then it becomes work, and nobody likes work. so yeah, make sure you guys always enjoy it. If you do decide to sign up, be sure to add all of us to your multi-tap. We'll be sure to add you back. We'll hang out. We'll get games beaten together. I want to thank Muba for the wonderful theme. This thing looks amazing. It worked out really nicely. So thank you, Grand Muba, for that. I want to thank James and Handshake Guy for joining me and accompanying me through this. This was a lot of fun. I really hope that we can do more of these. My Mode 7 certainly does not get enough use. I know, James, you've joined me for one. I've had Gamers Refuge join me for one, and I've done one on my own. It's a lot of fun. I just never have the time to sit down and collect news to actually do it. But, any kind of hot topics you want to talk about, ringers, anything like that, by all means, let me know. I'll set this up again. I'll be more than happy to host you guys one more time. So, but that's
Actually,
it.
that would be a good idea too. Is if you see any gaming news, any gaming controversies, or even just any, thought-provoking ideas you have, send them to one of us on Twitter. We'll organize another one of these.
Yeah, absolutely. I have no problems with that at all. But yeah, I don't got to go through all my stuff. You guys all know where to find me. I may be back.
Yours is uniform.
Yeah, I may be back a little later tonight to do a little more Kingdom Hearts, but I'm not 100% sure on that just yet. But I will keep you guys posted. Just keep a lookout on my Twitter. One new thing is that I did create a calendar. You can find that on my Twitter, and it's basically a schedule of my streaming. It's probably kept more up to date than the actual schedule that's posted on Twitch. So keep your eyes on that. It's actually a moving calendar, so you'll have that as well. And if you have not already heard and are interested in participating in the visual novel, please be sure to do that. Reach out to myself or Handshake Guy, and we can get you all situated for that. There's a couple people who signed up already with their names, but you did not give me times or dates. So please do that next. I need to know not only the part you want to play, but when you're available so I can organize exactly when we can get everything situated. So.
And on that note, I do want to mention that the last time I checked the sign-up sheet, which was like super late last night or early this morning, there's still one position to be filled, and we need as many narrators as we can get. It's a super text-heavy game, and the more like unique voices, the more fun we can have with it.
Yeah.
We're just gonna burn through people.
Yeah, we'll figure out exactly how many it is. But if you don't get picked for this one, and this works out really well, we're definitely going to be doing more of this because I love the idea. I think Handshake Guy was really onto something with this kind of approach for a visual novel. I've been trying to think like, how the hell am I going to get through any visual novels on a stream? That's just something I'll have to do on my own. And this idea popped up, and I think it's great. So.
And hey, once we finish it, add that :B: to your backloggery, and you're good to go.
That's right.
Yeah, it's pretty much the same thing.
But yeah, guys.
Freshie, stop plugging yourself in the chat.
To everybody who popped in, I saw a bunch of viewers come in and out of here. Thank you guys so much for watching. Hopefully, you guys give me a follow if you want to see gaming and more of this. I'm currently doing, like I said, Kingdom Hearts, but I play through a variety of different games. Just take a peek at my backlog. You'll see exactly what's next and what's on the docket and all that jazz. Be sure to check out these wonderful guests here. They are awesome people. I wouldn't have them here otherwise, even if they do have unpopular opinions and stuffy noses. So
even if Final Fantasy IX is leagues better than 7.
He said it. That's it. So thank you guys, everybody, for joining us. Thanks for listening to us ramble a little bit, and have a good night. I will talk to you guys all later.
Take care.
Bye.